Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Joseph George Ambrosio, Hubert Elbridge Armstrong, Alan Theo Aslett, Lawrence Benjamin Bannock, Mark Albert Barnes, Eugene Bean, Jr., Louis William Belloc, Jr., Luther Clark Berryman, James Franklin Bishop, Robert Edward Bittner, Jr., Tommy Ray Bowman, Michael Lee Bradley, Mark Larry Brown, Darris Brown, Eldridge Michael Brunette, Louis Hector Campos, Richard Caraba, Edward Anthony Carruthers, George Albert Carter, Charles Manuel Centennial, David Keith Shahak, Eugene Jackie Clark, Randall Kelvin Clements, Delphine Hilario Cook, James Wallace Kramer, Charles Wesley Daniels, Jr., Richard Davis, Jr., Willard DeLong, Jr., Charles Edward DeLassus, Jerry Edward Denson, Frank Edward Zizzer, Jr., Donald Lee Eldridge, Arthur Richard Ewing, Edwin Joseph Fallon, Mitchell Loris Furman, Jose Anibal Flores, Patrick Joseph Gallagher, Stanley Arthur Goff, Ronald Lester Granville, Kelvin Leslie Green, Arvil Hugh Hall, James V. Hamilton, Robert Lee Hennigan, Robert Orrin Hill, Jr., Paul Holston, Thomas Lee Hoover, John Wallace Hose, Jr., John Norman Huntley, Quentin Fox Hurst, Jerry Grant Ingram, Tyrone Jackson, Philip Harold Jacobs, Mark Stephen James, Richard Lee Jones, Ronald George Jordette, Stephen Dale Carneem, James Patrick Kelly, Leroy Allen King, Lawrence Frank Kinnear, John Giuliano Quintaro, Robert Edwin Knoll, David Duane Knowles, Stephen Harold Crumpkin, William James Langman,
Billy Wayne Laws, Edward Lester Lawton, Richard Bryan Linebury, Alan Robert Lowen, Halford Logan, Thomas Allen Lowden, David Webster McClurg, Louis Nathaniel Mallon, Jesus Rosa Mariano, Charles Joseph L. Mason, William Richard Masters, Grover C. Matthews Jr., Lawrence Richard Mershrod, Gary Paul Meyer, Blaine Stanley Miles Jr., Anthony John Montoya Jr., James Albert Morris Jr., Johnny Newsom, Jeffrey Charles Niles, Kenneth Clifford Noakes, Gordon Wilson Ogilvie, Tommy Eugene Obson, John William Parcels, David Hunter Petard, Louis Edward Perazzo, Carol Wayne Powell, James Elmer Pruitt, Robert Charles Perkle, Isham Ike Quick, Philip Dallum Reeder, Stephen Blaine Ricconi, Roger Allen Rickert, Robert Edward Robinson, Herschel Gale Rogers, Daniel Robert Romanco, Robert Frank Runga Jr., James Wesley Rowlett, Ronald Benton Ruppel, Johnny D. Sanderson, Wisely Smith, Larry James Smith, William Arthur Smith Jr., Ephraim Soto Sr., Dyke Augustus Spillman, Vicky Earl Stanley, Joseph Millard Stein, Hewlin Bernard Stoker, Garrett Garland Sutton Jr., Esteban Sabao, Robert Taylor, Herbert Gordon Taylor, Tommy Roy Thomas, James Anthony Tonnen, Robin Lee Varney, Dennis Wayne Vaughn, Virgil Jr. Webb, Jeffrey Merle White, John Allen Wood, Mac Lee Woolley Jr., Bradford Dwayne Wright, Thaddeus Sajak,